No singing this time. Let's just get to it.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to Footballguys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
What a great day of football it was. And Chargers and Falcons is the first game we're going to recap on the week 9 recap here. And Bloom, it's 20-17. Chargers get the win just barely. And they do it with Justin Herbert going for 30 of 43, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Joshua Palmer, 8 for 106. DeAndre Carter, 5 for 53, some hard-fought yards in there. Gerald Everett, 5 for 36. And Everett and Palmer, because of the single digits, Bloom. Was that Everett or was that Palmer? Because Palmer's larger and Everett's like more receiver like. Well, whatever. That's what you got. Austin Eckler, touchdown receiving, 7 for 24. Touchdown rushing, 14 for 47. Could have had another touchdown, except his elbow was down. Hell of an athletic play there. But either way, the Chargers do enough to pull it out in the end.
They do enough. See, another one. This isn't the first time this year we said the Chargers win a game that they usually lose. They're the find a way to lose team, and they found a way to win against another find a way to lose team. From a fantasy perspective, the headlines are pretty short. This is going to be a theme, right? We know where we're at in fantasy. Where are we at in the NFL? A little more difficult to figure out. Justin Herbert, underperforming, but can you really put it on him with no Allen, with no Mike Williams? So we'll see. Next week, you're going to face San Francisco. We'll see how that defense looks coming out of the bye. Eckler was the man. Although, again, there was one that he might have been down. They let it go. They called it a touchdown. Then they saw his elbow hit the ground. Then, as the Chargers are driving for the game-clinching field goal, Eckler fumbles. Rashaan Evans recovers, returns it about 20 yards, fumbles himself. Then the Chargers recover, and then Herbert makes the throw, I believe, to Josh Palmer, who was a good play. And A.J. Terrell's out. So, yes, we're going to pick on the Falcons secondary, although you got to have more than just Palmer. Everett was okay, but dropped one where he could have added at least 20, 25 yards to his total in this one. And, again, this is a find-a-way-to-win team. I don't know that the Chargers are a good team, but if they can continue to scuffle, eventually they're going to get back Joey Bosa. Eventually they're going to get back Mike Williams. Maybe they'll get back Keenan Allen. I don't know. This team is still hanging around, finding a way to win. And they were facing a first-place team today, Cecil.
Yeah, and incredible what great talent will do if they were only coached better, because the Chargers will choke eventually. They didn't today, whatever. But Cordell Patterson running over fools in his first game back. That didn't take long. He practiced Wednesday. In the game today, had 2 rushing touchdowns, including one where he looked like Derrick Henry. Kyle Pitts, 2 for 27, and overthrown on what would have been Bloom, 70-yard touchdown?
70, yeah.
There would have been a big one. Marcus Mariota overthrew him. Drake London got to hang on to that rock, or he's just going to get it stripped away from you, 3 for 23. So not much here, honestly. Tyler Arfield, 10 for 99. Need to mention that. Not much here other than Patterson. And Patterson did it all in a near victory for the Falcons.
Yeah, a near victory. You feel bad here. The defense did their job even without A.J. Terrell. They got enough stops, got an interception from Herbert. But another game sees where we bump right into the limitations of Marcus Mariota. There was the missed big throw to Kyle Pitts. That could have been a game changer. And you just don't feel like, even though the defense is focused on the running game is clicking. Tyler Algier actually had the big plays in the running game, but it was Cordell Patterson finishing with that. It just runs over Drew Tranquill in the hole. You don't get to see this that often in the NFL, where it's just linebacker, running back in the hole about the 2-yard line, and Cordell Patterson just lowers his shoulder and knocks him on his keister and gets in for his second touchdown. So congratulations if you trusted Cordell Patterson. It was still a committee, but if Patterson's getting the goal line carries, that's all you need to know. But not getting those passing plays from Marcus Mariota, and Marcus Mariota, a dud for fantasy. Could have been better, but it isn't all on him. Drake London gets a catch inside the 20, and Khalil Mack just takes the ball away from him, just takes it from him, and returns it. So a lot of game plays where this game was swinging back and forth. Really the story of that early window. First place Atlanta, still. We'll see whether they have any company in first place by the time the rest of the games transpire. They're going to go to Carolina and face a Carolina team that there's some regression to what we expected this week. if we expected this game to be a thriller and back and forth, you got what you were expecting.
Yeah, Miami and Chicago, we got the best game of the week.
Yeah.
Just like we all planned. Okay, Miami. I love Mike McDaniel telling Justin Fields to stop it. Like, stop it. Stop running for first downs. 35-32. Dolphins hang on to get the win, but the Bears put up a hell of a fight. We'll get to the Bears in just a little bit. But Tua Tagovailoa, 21-30, 302 yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs. Tyreek Hill, 7 for 143, and a touchdown over 1,000 yards on the season. Third most yards in the first 8 games of a season.
Yeah.
Top Bloom. Jalen Waddle, 5 for 85 and a touch. You saw Jeff Wilson show an immediate impact there with the receiving touchdown, 3 for 21, and then 9 for 51 is leading the way on the ground, but a 50-50 split with Raheem Mostert, who gets 9 for 26 and a rushing touchdown. Mostert also targeted a couple times. No catch there. And that's about it. Mike Gesicki, 1 for 3. I was looking for Gesicki. I was like, what did he do? Oh, yeah, nothing. And then Durham Smythe with what is that, drop on a 4th down. Mike McDaniel does not hesitate going for it on a 4th down.
No. This Miami team is a dream recipe for fantasy football because you have a passing game that opens up the field, that goes up and down the field quickly, and you have a defense that gives up a lot of big plays. And like you said, easily, we could have seen Dolphins put up a score in the 50s in this one 3 different times. They were stopped on a 4th down on the Chicago side of the field. So yes, Chicago's defense is even worse than the score looks. Miami's offense is even better than the score looks, at least whenever they are getting a defense like Chicago. And what you saw here, again, we just need to reset. Now, granted, there are going to be some matchups that might quiet down this offense, but we're going to reset our expectations. Tua as a quarterback 1, maybe even a top 5 quarterback. Waddle and Hill are both top 6 receivers, top 8 receivers. You're going to continue to see them. Waddle drew a long pass interference in this one. Hill gets his first touchdown since week 2. And then we see some adjustments here. It's a Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert backfield. Mostert did get a short touchdown here, but Wilson looked better. Wilson looked like the better receiving back. I think this is going to be a 60-40 Wilson backfield. I think if you have one going forward, Wilson's the one you want. That's even without factoring in the injury.
He seems pretty motivated, Bloom.
Yeah.
And wearing 23 is not. I'm going to do some investigating.
Yeah.
To see how much is like, not necessarily revenge, but like, Jeff Wilson feeling pretty confident wearing the number of the guy that basically replaced him in San Francisco.
Yeah, and did the 49ers trade the Dolphins? I guess the Dolphins traded away the 49ers pick. It's just odd to see the way all these things went down because it's like the 49ers gave the Dolphins their starting running back for a 5th-round pick. That's what it looks like. Yeah. But we'll be talking about Wilson on the Waiver Wire show. We won't be talking about Mike Gesicki until we get to one of the segments of the end, Cease. He's not really doing very much in this passing game. You wonder why the Packers didn't inquire about him. All this talk about they were talking on Waller, they were in on Claypool. Why weren't they in on Mike Gesicki? Regardless, Miami, this is a team, Cease. When we get to the playoffs in any game, they got a chance against anybody, obviously, if they beat Buffalo. But you even see this team as an outside shot. Defenses have not figured out how to compress the field. There's so much room for Hill and Waddle to work. We'll see if they can get it figured out. We'll see if Cleveland can get it figured out against them next week.
We'll see what Chicago keeps doing, but Justin Fields, keep it up, kid. Now 17 or 28, 123. That's not going to blow you away, but 3 touchdowns, no INTs, 178 yards on the ground, and 1 rushing touchdown, including that 61-yarder where you see him exhaust his options as a passer and then just keep the play alive and then take off the run. 61 yards, longest of his career, goes for that score. David Montgomery gets 14 of 36. Khalil Herbert gets 7 for 23. The rushing attack was all Fields. The passing attack was all Cole Kmet, 5 for 41 and 2 touchdowns. Darnell Mooney, 7 for 43 and a touchdown. One of the prettiest touchdowns you'll see today. Chase Claypool, the new guy, 2 for 13. Okay, so we saw some new players, Bloom, the Jeff Wilson thing we just talked about. We saw some other new players that didn't do a whole lot.
No.
But the Bears made this entertaining, and they put up a hell of a fight.
Yeah, to be fair, the expectation on a new team in the first week should be low and say, let's not close the book. But we might close the book on Chase Claypool being fantasy relevant this year simply because you see the chemistry with Mooney. A beautiful pass by Fields to the corner of the end zone and a beautiful catch by Mooney. And he brings it in coming down. Cole Kmet, easy touchdown passes to him. Now he's back on the fantasy radar. And I don't want to say that's it, but I think that we can see with this defense. So Khalil Herbert needs at least competitive game scripts. And this team was competitive and hanging in, but they were hanging in on the back of Justin Fields. So I'm not sure about Herbert. Montgomery is already basically just a perpetual what the heck flex. You hope he gets a touchdown or some receptions. But I think this is going to be an offense that we see running more through Justin Fields. And for fantasy, well, the results speak for themselves. A lot of people are going to win their week because of Justin Fields. A lot of people are going to go to the playoffs because they hung on to Justin Fields or they picked up Justin Fields. And a lot of people are on winning streaks in fantasy leagues right now because they started trusting Justin Fields, even though the matchups weren't good. And the matchups are getting better. How much better? Detroit next week. Wait, is that a good matchup? I'm not sure, Cease.
Right, I'm not sure either. We got a couple games before we get to those guys, but we do have to talk about the Carolina Panthers and the Joe Mixon day. If you ran against Joe Mixon today, you probably lost. It was all about Mixon in this one, 42-21. The final scores, the Bengals get the win, and then the return of Baker Mayfield, now garbage time. But PJ Walker was struggling through a couple of picks, and this team was down 35-0 at halftime. So there you have it. So Baker comes in the second half, throws a couple of touchdowns, and we could talk about it. Terrace Marshall, first touchdown of his career, top of my head, but 353 and a touch. Tommy Tremble, 2 for 11 and a touchdown there. Nobody started him. DJ Moore, you might have started him, 2 for 24. Oh, Dante Foreman, 7 for 23. Okay. So there's that. Raheem Blackshear gets the rushing touchdown there for Carolina. So kind of a mess when we saw this team rally after the Christian McCaffrey trade. Couldn't get much going and certainly couldn't stop Joe Mixon today.
They were a couple of different plays away from forcing a 4-way tie for first place in the NFC South. Now they look like one of the teams that should be planning for next year. And since I made the connection to the Awakenings, good film, where catatonic patient comes back to life for a few weeks and then goes back to being catatonic. And that's what I was afraid of. So now you don't have a lot of sense of security with Dante Foreman. We'll see what happens when Chuba Hubbard is back. You don't have a sense of security with DJ Moore, who looked frustrated. Very frustrated. Sound familiar? We're back. Panthers. Steve Wilkes got these guys motivated and they're playing well. And we'll see what happens on Thursday night when they play a divisional opponent that they played in a pretty epic back and forth game just last week. But for fantasy now, see who's going to start. Is it Sam Darnold? Is it Baker Mayfield? Is it some none of the above quarterback that they're going to sign during the week? I have no idea. I mean, it may not matter, right? Does it matter? I don't think it matters. Even though the garbage time touchdowns came, they didn't help anybody unless you were forced to put Terrace Marshall in. And there's that moment, you beat Tom Brady. You had a pretty fun back and forth game with Atlanta, but no, you're one of the worst teams in the league. And that's why I see first you think Cincinnati without Jamar Chase. Oh, the Browns exposed them. Then you think, well, they got it all figured out. Was it just though that they were playing the Panthers? Well, next week we're not going to see them play anybody. So we'll wait and see, but it's an encouraging note to go into your bye.
Beat the team you're supposed to and get it there on the bye. On the Sam Darnold tip, they have until next Tuesday to officially activate him because they opened up the 21-day window. And Darnold last week was like, I don't know what they're going to do. So
they haven't told me.
Who knows? If we get to Wednesday and he hasn't been officially activated, then he's done for the year. So Cincinnati, not done for the year. They're fighting back. And I agree with you, Bloom. Like, yeah, it's Carolina. Okay. But they show how they're going to look without Jamar Chase. Lots of Joe Mixon, 22, 153, 4 rushing touchdowns. Joe Burrow had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown, 206 yards passing, 1 passing touchdown, which goes to Joe Mixon, 458. He gets all the touchdowns. T. Higgins, 7 for 60 in this one. Tyler Boyd, 5 for 44. Hayden Hurst, 5 for 35. Samaje Perine, if I didn't mention him already, 6 for 51 in this contest. And what was it? Irwin? Was it Irwin who had the almost would have been touchdown, right. Should have been touchdown maybe, and then Mixon gets a touchdown. So right. They called it wasn't a touchdown for Irwin, and then Mixon gets another score. So there you go. Sorry if you faced him, and congrats if you had him in.
Yeah, everything coming up Mixon. By the way, real quickly as a postscript on PJ Walker, I think the 6 drives he was in were 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, interception, punt, interception, and that's when Steve Wilkes said, "I've seen enough." There was no point when fantasy teams with Joe Mixon said we've seen enough, but no more. Another one, and another one, and another one. 5 touchdowns, and these days are remarkable enough. We will remember this one. but there's a handful that stand out, right? Jamal Charles had one during the fantasy playoffs, I remember. So congratulations. And it all came back at once, touchdown regression or big game regression or whatever you want to call it. The matchup helped here. And they went back to the drawing board. I guess the drawing board included Trent Taylor getting some end arounds, some sweeps. It got the offense going. It was pretty basic. There wasn't a lot of barnstorming, downfield passing for Joe Burrow. But in addition to Mixon, if you played any of your pieces here, Hurst or Boyd, who almost had a touchdown, also another one that went to review, Burrow, who was fine, but not a big play because, well, that's what happens when Joe Mixon scores all the touchdowns, almost all the touchdowns. Burrow had one that he threw to Mixon, so he scored that one, and one Burrow actually got in on a sneak. But a sigh of relief for this team, and they can look around the league. We'll see what Kansas City does, but Buffalo, we're going to talk about what happened to them. Cincinnati, this team, a lot of these players now have had the experience of getting to the playoffs, overcoming expectations, playing in these intense situations. So they were a team that really came together in the second half last year, and this is at least the opening chapter of that happening this year.
We got a big one to talk about, and is at the end. Because I saw, was it Aaron Nagler, our good friend, Cheesehead TV, that said, put in Jordan Love? I think he might have tweeted that, Bloom, during this game. Green Bay and Detroit is the next game to talk about. The Lions get the win 15-9, and Aaron Rodgers, the three interceptions, one touchdown, 291 yards passing, and the thumb that keeps bothering him. He'd make a throw, it'd look like garbage, and then he'd pull on his thumb. So the thumb's clearly bothering him, and he'll rip those passes. He's got that same motion that you should never coach, but it's just Aaron Rodgers motion. And in years past, Bloom, we'd see him keep the play alive, and he just that little flick, and you're like, oh, here goes a touchdown. And it was like a pick and another pick, and going to the middle of the field wasn't working for Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, it's frustrating for the 3-6 Packers. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, the leading rusher, 40 yards on the ground. That's bad. Aaron Jones, 25 yards. A.J. Dillon, 34 yards. Alan Lazard, 4 for 87 and a touch. And that's about it, really. No one else does much of anything in this contest. And Green Bay's got problems that I don't know that they have answers to, Bloom.
No, I think so. And we thought maybe they were just a special teams coach away after the way things went against San Francisco last year, a lot more away. And the news isn't good coming out of this one. Aaron Jones is banged up with the ankle. Romeo Doubs gets carted off in this one. So it's not going to get easier. And I guess the easiest way and Aaron Rodgers teed this up for this one. He's having a bad trip. This is just a bad trip season for Aaron Rodgers. And the thing is, if you said it's the Lions, he's going to be able to move the ball. Lazard was ready to play, and they got Bakhtiari and Jenkins out there. And in fact, it was one of the plays that went wrong. If you were said they're going to move the ball, they did. They moved the ball 3 different times. They were down inside the 20 and came away with nothing. Or even one of the times they got a field goal. But what you saw here was just the breakdowns at the worst possible times. At the 1 yard line, a ball goes off of a Lions helmet for an interception. Another one down to the 1 yard line, and they try to throw the ball to David Bakhtiari, and Aiden Hutchinson, the hometown hero, picks it off at the goal line. Then there's another 4th down stop when Alan Lazard can't bring in a ball. Looked like they did, called it a catch upon review. No. And then another pick in the red zone after Jair Alexander had an interception. In between those times, it wasn't like Rodgers was playing poorly. He didn't like a quarterback who's lost it. It just was at those moments. And how many times have we seen the Lions play a game like this and then somehow they lose, right? A Hail Mary or 67-yard field goal or who knows. But they're able to get the win in this one. Alan Lazard looked like he's going to be a good play going forward. It could have been an even bigger game. Again, with Doubs out, he's now the number one. Rob Tunyon, Big Bob, not so big. Josiah DeGuara, maybe a more frequently targeted. Not that we're going to go with anybody here. Cease, the big question is, where's the running game? There was never a point that they were getting blown out in this game. Aaron Jones did get banged up. They did try to get A.J. Dillon going. Dillon had 2 goal-to-go carries before one of the 4th downs that failed. So it was there, but the running game, which we thought was the foundation of this offense, he was good against the Bills last week, not so good against the Lions. And I think that even if this team somehow scratches and scrapes out some sort of miraculous wild card berth, because that's what we're talking about with the Vikings continuing to win, they have too many problems. And it makes you wonder if they had at the time whenever there was all that drama. Is Aaron Rodgers going to stay? Is Aaron Rodgers going to go? Is he going to retire? Is he going to play for somebody else? Is he going to force a trade? Certain people I know reported the trade was in place. But the Packers got cold feet. Now they bet they wish their feet was a little warmer during them times.
Yeah, get rid of them before they go downhill. Lions side, Jared Goff, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Touchdowns go to James Mitchell. There's more there for the kid. And then Shane Zylstra. Did we have a Brandon Zylstra and a Shane Zylstra day?
Zylstra returned the first kickoff, right?
Yes,
last in the phone book, first in our hearts.
Yes, there you go. And then Shane gets the touchdown, and we won't be talking about him on the waiver wire. Super deep dynasty, though. We'll be talking about James Mitchell, to be sure. As we watch that. Brock Wright only with 1 target, but we were watching what are they going to look like without Hawkinson. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, 455. DeAndre Swift, 3 for 40, and then 2 for 10 on the ground. Jamal Williams, 24 for 81. And, he's their goal line back, so he didn't get that rushing touchdown today, Bloom, but they clearly want to try that when they get close to pay dirt. But hell, it was enough to win today.
Yeah, it was. And by the way, if you had DeAndre Swift, he did have a catch down to the 1 yard line. Jamal Williams didn't get the touchdowns, but the opportunities were there against a defense that played them pretty tough. And opening drive or early in the game, Detroit gets inside the 10, stopped on 4th down and short. There was another 4th down late in the game that opened the door for the Packers to have a chance. So you see Dan Campbell still being aggressive, still putting faith in his players on both sides of the ball, but it was the defense carrying the ball across the goal line, so to speak, for this team. Not a big offensive day for Goff, but at least he threw the 2 touchdowns. Williams and Swift, Craig Reynolds went down on this one. You hate to see that. Williams and Swift, though, are both giving you flex plays, running back 2 plays. And we can see with Swift, even if they're going to make him only a factor on, say, 10 or 12 touches, he's good enough to make that matter. If he had scored on that one that he got down to the 1 yard line, you still feel okay about playing him. You should feel okay about playing Jamal Williams, especially with a better defense. Maybe if the defense continues to play better. I think Kirby Joseph, who had 2 of the picks, got a little banged up in this one, so we'll watch that. But as we're seeing, it's not just the offenses, like the Chicago offense, for instance, that are coming together as the season goes on. Today it was the Detroit defense. And speaking of Chicago, that's who Detroit gets next week. And I still think that teams love to beat Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. And I can't quite figure out how to factor that into my projections, but it was fun to watch today.
Yeah, there was a meme I saw floating around that said Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers today, and it had a picture of Michael Jordan with the Wizards and Shaquille O'Neal with the Celtics. And I was like, okay. I still don't admit the Wizards time happened with MJ, but didn't need to see him out there missing dunks, man. That was not was not good.
Didn't happen.
It didn't. It was a figment of our imagination.
Like so many of the things he used to motivate himself, Cecil, didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen. Yeah. Or he just make it up. It did happen. I never said that. Yeah, you did. Okay, let's talk about the Raiders. They need some motivation. Yeah, I guess. Jacksonville 27, Raiders 20 in this contest. And, well, here you go, Raiders. This is what you're going to get. It's not a lot. Derek Carr, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Devontae Adams gets 10 for 146 and 2 touchdowns. And then Foster Moreau, 2 for 42. Hunter Renfrow, 3 for 26. Josh Jacobs, 17 for 67. So it was working with Adams, worked a little bit for Carr, although fantasy GMs are greedy and they want more. And it's just, Jacobs had 3 games in a row, 150 yards. And then now, last couple of games, has barely been able to muster like 50. So there you go, Raiders. And you fall to 2-6. And the bottom, the Broncos are better than the Raiders. And that says something.
Right. I'm sorry. You're going to have to watch the Broncos and Raiders play this year, aren't you? So, okay, one good thing for fantasy, Carr to Adams back on track. And you saw, I think, in the first quarter, Adams had something like 6 for 88 and a touchdown in the first quarter. So it shows you actually you didn't have that much production for the rest of the game after that. And then not much else was working. You saw just some workman-like carries from Josh Jacobs. It was good enough. I mean, the workload's there at least. They got ahead 20-7 in this game. But, remember we thought Josh McDaniels would at least improve this offense or improve it in the same proportion that Devontae Adams would improve it. right? You had some pieces to work
Right.
with, and I know Darren Waller wasn't that important to this offense, but it's not working. It's not coming together. We see all the talk about Hackett as a one and done coach. What about Josh McDaniels? This was a game that they needed to finish. They didn't hit the snooze button on the East Coast. They showed up, but you saw once they opened up a lead, nothing was really working here. There was one pass that could have been a long touchdown to Amir Abdullah that Derek Carr underthrew. And that's another story with Derek Carr, right? We're always able to see what he could be, but he never quite turns into it. And I think this was another one of those games, even though he was able to hook up with Devontae Adams. And this is the
that was Chad Muma on him on the Abdullah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Muma running down.
Abdullah is like 5'5". Like you got to put that in a different spot, Derek.
Yeah, exactly. And this is just, Cecil, we're following these teams. We're at the exact halfway point of the season after week 9. But I think there are two teams I'm thinking of always talking heads. We're on the road to nowhere. Raiders Colts next week.
There we go. And if the Raiders are to get rid of Josh McDaniels, it will have to be with the bank's approval because as I was told in Vegas,
Mark Davis
can't do anything without calling his banker first.
Go to the pawn shop, one of those pawn shops in Vegas.
Exactly. Best I could do is $50. Thanks, Rick. Let's move on. Oh, we got to talk about the Jacksonville side. There's so many better games to talk about, but Travis Etienne, he makes me happy, Bloom. 28 for 109, 2 rushing touchdowns, hard fought yards as well. Longest was 18, and he had 28 carries. So it's not like he was ripping off a 60-yarder and that aided the day. Like, no, it was 18. There was a lot of like inside in between the tackles runs, and hitting and moving his legs, keeping those legs turning. So great job, 18. 235, a touchdown for Trevor Lawrence. Christian Kirk goes 8 for 76 and 1 touchdown. Marvin Jones Jr., 5 for 48. Zay Jones, 5 for 40. And 18 also had a couple catches for 17 yards. Evan Ingram, 1 for 8. So there you go. There you have it, Jacksonville, and you get the win. And they are definitely fired up for each other. I don't know if they're playing for Doug Peterson or, I think Etienne kind of builds that energy on the offensive side of the ball, and the defense does have some playmakers. Yeah,
you see it is the Travis Etienne offense, and he's going to be a league winner. Now, let's see what happens as far as the team's concerned. He had one of the touchdowns he scored, he did fumble as the ball was crossing the plane. So he got the touchdown, but teams are going to continue to attack the ball. He's fumbled inside the 5 already once this year. But you also see that he's just got so much burst, so much juice, and it's combined with, like you said, Cecil, that energy, that ceaseless energy that the team is feeding off of. You see Trevor Lawrence feeding off of get some good runs here, throws a touchdown. I know Kenny Pickett actually physically faked the slide, and then they outlawed that play in college football, right? It looked like Trevor Lawrence telepathically told the defense he was going to slide, and they're like, okay, cool. And they said, no, I'm not. And he kept running.
Well, and they let up because obviously as a defender, you're going to get that FedEx if you hit the quarterback. So you let up, and then the quarterback like breaks your weak ass arm tackle because you let up.
Right.
And then he keeps running. So
it's great because it wasn't so much truly a fake slide. It was just the vibe was, I'm about to slide. Oh, well, if you guys aren't going to really actually make me feel like I need to slide at this moment. So it was good. A good game for Lawrence. Still, he's going to dink and dunk as a passer. Now, because it was the Raiders defense, that was working. It was working for Christian Kirk. It was okay for the Joneses. Not that you were playing them. It wasn't okay for Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram not as involved. Now you wonder what you have in Evan Ingram. You know what you have in ETN. You know what you have in Kirk. You know what you have in Lawrence in this offense. And like you said, Cecil, you have a team that's going to play hard. It looks like this year, though, everybody except maybe the Jags just wants to give the division to the Titans. And speaking of Titans, they're playing Kansas City tonight, and that's who Jacksonville plays next week.
Yeah. Oh boy, here we go. And are the Colts tanking? Like legitimate question.
Next.
They can't not be tanking.
Yes, have to be.
And if you're Frank Reich, do you already have assurances that you're safe? Is that why you can tank? Because they're tanking.
Brady. Yeah.
Yeah, they're tanking. Like they are. They look like garbage.
They have Nick Foles. They have Nick Foles on the roster.
Exactly. And you're going with Sam Ehlinger for what? Why? Like, and he's the rushing quarterback, but Bloom, he also looks like his running skills are not going to translate to the pro.
No.
Like, and one of those guys that had the moxie and whatever. Part of me feels like this is what Matt Corral will look like if he ever gets out there. But like, with Ehlinger, it's just you don't have enough athleticism, dude. You don't have enough juice. You have the juice to make it, but not to make it. Sacked 9 times. 9 times. Matthew Judon chose violence today. 26-3. The final score. The Colts just suck. I don't even want to talk about them, dude. I mean, I guess
No,
Deion
it's
Jackson
bad.
gets hurt, but
Yeah.
like, who cares? All of this stuff, who cares? Alec Pierce, who cares? Michael Pittman,
Right.
who cares? Paris Campbell, who cares? As long as they have Sam Ehlinger in, you can't tell me that they're not tanking.
They have to be. They have to be tanking. And see, you remember in the whole Miami investigation, whenever it came out, Brian Flores felt like it was, and there was an incentive, maybe a specific cash incentive for the team's draft position to get better, i.e., tank. And what did the NFL say about that when they resolved that investigation? Cease. Oh, well, there might have been a misunderstanding about whether it was a joke. Okay, tanking's real. And I hope, Cease, what I hope is that in the moral, ethical universe we live in, when you get a team used to the idea of losing is okay, then that has repercussions that go greater than whatever extra draft pick you get, or you get one of the top 3 quarterbacks or something like that.
It's cursed.
We'll see, but you don't like to see it. And certainly for fantasy, what it creates now is you don't trust any of your Colts as long as Ellinger's in. 0. And now we're going to get Jonathan Taylor shut down, right? I mean, how does that change the calculus of whether to play Taylor? We'll see. We'll see. So yeah, Indianapolis, it was pathetic. It was just pathetic. That was the word that I had for this as they go again to face the Colts in a game that they're charging people to watch that game next week.
Yeah. Eesh. Okay. I feel like the Patriots side isn't much better, Bloom.
No.
You know, Mac Jones. Like, Mac Jones is not good. Okay.
No.
Stop with the fantasy, everybody. Ramondre Stevenson had 60 yards on the ground and had a receiving touchdown. Hunter Henry had 4 for 50. Jacoby Myers had 5 for 42. But that's it, really. Jones, 147 yards, 1 touchdown, no INTs. And you saw resting Bill face.
Yeah.
I'm glad people like that, Bloom. This team was up, what were they up, like 21-0 or whatever, and resting Bill face was still there. He was still unhappy, even though they were shutting out the Colts. But he knew, you're facing Sam Ehlinger, you don't have much to do to get the win.
Yeah, absolutely. What is there here? Even Ramondre Stevenson wasn't that big. At least he caught a one-handed touchdown catch. Otherwise, he would have been a dud in this game. You know who's good to have from the Patriots offense? Nick Folk, the kicker. That's who you want, right? I mean, the touchdown they scored late was a defensive touchdown. You want the defense. You want the defense and the kicker. Bill Belichick keeping defense and kicker alive in fantasy league single-handedly. Yeah. I mean, that's where we are. Jacoby Myers, even he had a fumble in this one. Still wonder about Bailey Zappi. Still wonder if we're going to see Bailey Zappi. This offense looks so much better. See, I was even on the show saying, wow, this is going to be a good offense. If it's a good offense with Bailey Zappi, it's going to be a good offense with Mac Jones. Maybe Bailey Zappi was the secret special sauce for this offense. I don't know, but I know the Patriots are doing a great job building a team that can go on the road in the playoffs and lose in the wild card.
That's my fancy sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Bills fans are saying, because they tried the fancy sauce and they didn't like it. And oh boy, I feel like all the love that Dan Campbell gives, we should give it to Robert Saleh instead, because that team, the Jets, are playing for their guy. 20-17, the final score. Jets over the Bills, and Josh Allen kept making mistakes. Now kept, running people over and rushing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, but 2 INTs. 205 yards, no touchdowns. Seemed to be off with Stephon Diggs, even though Diggs had 5 for 93. There were 10 targets. And there were how many end zone targets that Diggs could have come up with? Gabe Davis, 2 for 33. It's like, you don't have to go after Sauce. You don't have to. Like, they're trying to go for the pass interference or whatever. Like, that's not going to work. Dawson Knox, speaking of not going to work. Devin Singletary, they don't like, and they don't use. And they fall, Bloom.
Yeah.
Why? Because they don't run the ball.
Anyway,
that's just me.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen's out there trying to do too much, taking too many hits.
Yeah.
Looked a little bit banged up. Like, bad stuff, Buffalo. Hopefully you learn from this one and the Jets get that win.
You can't put everything on the quarterback. You can't do that. I mean, you can't put everything on the quarterback week in, week out. And the Jets defense is for real. Robert Saleh has turned this Jets defense into one of the best defenses in the league. And you could see that they were frustrating the Bills. And like you said, Cease, that's where you get the virtue of setting up your quarterback in 3rd and 2. That's okay. Then the quarterback doesn't feel like he has to do everything himself. He doesn't have to run the ball so much and take hits. And you see Josh Allen, it was shades of Wyoming, where when he starts to feel like everything is on him, he makes more mistakes right out of the gate. And I think you saw the Jets matching the Bills' intensity right out of the gate in the red zone. They get down into the red zone, and Jordan Whitehead picks him. You see another Sauce Gardner interception, and you just see Josh Allen not able to do everything for this offense. And like you said, Cease, there's not a counterpunch here except for just continue to throw to Stephon Diggs. And we'll see about Nyheim Hines. Joe Buscaglia from The Athletic wrote a really good piece that made it sure seem like they have a role preset for a player just like Hines in this offense, and now they have him, right? James Cook, they're not ready to trust in that role yet. Isaiah McKenzie, maybe a little bit unreliable when it comes to ball security. Maybe Nyheim Hines, is that part of the counterpunch? Is some dump offs, some easier plays, throws to the running back? That's some stuff that might calm down. Because see, what you see about Josh Allen, and there's something about this where it's not even so much the individual process or thought process of a quarterback. It's you can tell whether the emotionally where they at. Are they frantic? Is it rushed? Or is it calm? And that's one of the things you see with Tua. Tua looks almost too calm sometimes, but he's calm. Josh Allen looked rushed, frantic, and not thinking deliberately like he was at the beginning of the season when everything looked like it would come so easy for this offense. And guess what, Buffalo? You got to play Minnesota next week. So the hits keep on coming. And I think what you've also sees here is the changing of the guard in the AFC East. Well, it's funny. When it was New England, everyone would get up for New England and still not be able to beat them. But Miami gets up for Buffalo coming to their house, the Jets, and they beat them. So who's good in the AFC? Well, we'll see about Kansas City, but I think we can see that this playoff bracket is a little more wide open than we thought maybe a month ago.
Let's talk about Zach Wilson. 154 yards, 1 touchdown, no INTs, getting the hell beat out of him. Only sacked a couple of times, but he was hit a lot. Took some big shots out there. 5 for 24 as a rusher. Michael Carter goes 12 for 76 and a rushing touchdown, and then a catch for 10 yards. Garrett Wilson, 8 for 92. CJ Uzomah, 3 for 16. James Robinson had a couple of catches, 5 yards, and that 1 touchdown. It was Etienne touchdown, and then James Robinson touchdowns were like within a couple of minutes of each other. Watching Red Zone today, so that was kind of cool. The former teammates winning, and the Jets winning with their young quarterback playing it safe and them emphasizing the run game. 174 yards on the ground, 5.1 a clip. You're going to win a lot of games playing that way and playing good defense.
Yeah, defense, running game, running through the backfield, and no mistakes from Zach Wilson. No big mistakes. And the other thing you're seeing from Zach Wilson is like you said, taking some hits, laying it out there. He is athletic. He can get out. He can scramble. He can extend plays. And otherwise just be part of the ethos of this team, right? Just have a little bit. It's almost like if you had a Ryan Fitzpatrick, but you told him, like, don't throw the ball downfield, but otherwise play with that energy. Play with that never say a die attitude. And he has Garrett Wilson on the other end of those passes. So you have Garrett Wilson who's going to be in, and then James Robinson and Michael Carter. You got a duo here, and you have a duo with Robinson catching the touchdown pass. You have Michael Carter having some longer runs, and you have a team. See, again, I'm looking at the Packers with the other LaFleur. Why isn't this what the Packers offense looks like? Why not build something like this? Where would they be? But you have clarity. This team knows who they are, and the Jets go into their bye on a high. And at 1 week cease after we're saying, like, really, we were really thinking about this team as a playoff team. Really, Zach Wilson, who's the backup now? Mike White. Maybe we should be adding Mike White in Superflex leagues. This was a galvanizing game for this team, just like the Bills going down to Miami and Miami just finding a way to win. It's almost like playing the Bills. It helps a team find their true selves if they have it in them. And we thought the Bills were the only team that were going to have that in them. But now there's 3 teams in the NFC East. So what a year, Cease. The NFC and AFC East are the power divisions. They're the power divisions.
Keep
That's
giving
where
us
we
stuff
are.
to talk about.
Yeah, and this game, again, and we exchanged I told a little story about what's going on in my stepson's fantasy football flag football league, but it still comes down to that emotional intensity and the test, and can you pass or fail the test? And the Jets passed, and at this point, we got to say Robert Saleh, Coach of the Year. I mean, I know Coach of the Year goes to someone who goes to the Super Bowl or with 15 games or something. But I think that when you look at this team, Cease, and you look at what they're doing, there's only one person that is responsible for this, in the sense that it's where it started, and watching what's coming out of it has been really fun. And even though we're not seeing pretty football by any means,
No.
we're seeing football that tests the emotional, spiritual metal of players, and we're seeing players transcend, and some fan bases that haven't had a lot to cheer about with some signature wins.
You like that. Minnesota and Washington is up next. It is the Audible. It's our week 9 recap. And make sure to do all those YouTube things. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And Kirk Cousins never misses a snap. Well, he missed one snap because Nick Mullins came in. It was a -3 passing attempt. Way to go, Nick. But Cousins, 265, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Justin Jefferson, 7 for 115 and a touch. Dalvin Cook, 2 for 9 and a receiving touchdown, in addition to 17 for 47 on the ground. TJ Hawkinson, their shiny new toy, 9 for 70. Okay. Adam Thielen, 3 for 67. Got a little bit banged up. Bloom, let me know if we got anything there on that. But either way, we already know the assets for Minnesota. They didn't really change. They added Hawkinson. That's the change. We're all watching for that. 9 catches on 9 targets.
Yeah.
Looks pretty good. And the Vikings getting that win. And even though the crowd was chanting for Taylor Heineke, it was Kirk Cousins who beat up on his old team.
Yeah, first time back in Washington. That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
First time, really.
Yeah.
I was surprised to hear that. But first time back in Washington, come out and have a really good drive. Justin Jefferson, of course, with an amazing catch to open. Then some punts, interception in the 2-minute drill. At one point, Washington's up 17-7 in this game. And I know Paul Charchian, who tries to keep the Minnesota fans, that's the market he's in. He tries to keep the Minnesota fans honest. If you look at fourth quarter drives, game-winning drives, Kirk Cousins is right up there with just about anybody. You don't think of him as that kind of quarterback, but that is that stabilizing force that he brought to the team in this game, even though it wasn't huge for fantasy against a defense that we might want to pick on. It was still a solid game. Dalvin Cook didn't do much in this game as a runner, but did catch a nice touchdown pass, nice touch pass from Cousins. Of course, Justin Jefferson comes through, but let's get to TJ Hawkinson, because Cecil makes you wonder, speaking of Paul Charchian, always heard rumblings that they were never happy with Irv Smith. Immaturity was a word that came up. Never realized his immense potential. And was there a lot there for the tight end in this pass offense if it was just a reliable, consistent player? Because it wasn't like Hawkinson was making athletic plays out there or ripping the seam. It was just plays that were plays to help keep this offense on schedule on a day that the running game wasn't working. And now TJ Hawkinson, as high as I don't even know when Mark Andrews is going to be healthy again. I mean, Hawkinson could be a top 3, top 4 fantasy tight end from here on out. I know we saw Philadelphia thump Minnesota, but things change as the season goes on. And even though they didn't have a decisive win, we're going to watch Washington play Philadelphia next week. We'll see how those division mates measure up. But winning these kinds of games on the road, having belief in your quarterback, defense making enough plays. It was a fun 3-game winning streak for Washington, but it came to an end on a day when really there wasn't as much offense as it even looked like there was for Washington.
But there's always YOLO ball when it comes to Taylor Heineke.
And
oh my God, that one was a punt.
Yeah, that's it.
The ref gets in the way and he throws it up there, and it's like
you never know.
Triple covered.
Use the ref as a pick
back there. Exactly. What a great play. And Curtis Samuel. Not many times do. I'll just take a moment, Bloom. The refs that they have on TV that aren't on the field, but then they kind of Dean Blandino types.
Yeah,
they're traditionally awful. Let's go to Dean Blandino or official X, and
it's right there in his name.
Nothing.
Bland.
Yeah. So, but he did say Curtis Samuel looked like he was in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Very good, Dean Blandino. He's been in the movies once, but Samuel in that play. Okay, it's Taylor Heineke, man. It is truly YOLO ball. And he had 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Curtis Samuel, 3 for 65 and a touch. And Dax Milne with the other touchdown. Nobody started him. Terry McLaurin, 5 for 56 in this contest. Antonio Gibson, 11 for 36 on the ground, 2 for 11 as a receiver. Brian Robinson, 13 for 44 here. And so this team's plucky. They try Logan Thomas, 3 targets, no catches. Jami Brown, target, no catches. So there's some names you might be monitoring in the Commanders offense. Love the uniforms, but don't love this. Like, they don't have the plan really. Like,
it doesn't look like an offense. Yeah,
it doesn't look like an offense. It just looks like actors that are playing an offense
Right.
in a movie, right?
Right.
There you
Yeah,
go.
and they can only do so much. I mean, the most of the offense on the day was that throw into quadruple coverage, triple coverage. Does the ref count quintuple coverage?
Something, yeah.
Something down there. And a bunch of guys had a chance to touch Curtis Samuel. I guess they didn't. That was it. That was the touchdown. And okay, you've got Gibson and Brian Robinson splitting the backfield with J.D. McKissick out. Hope he's okay. Terry McLaurin did enough. He's going to continue to be the main guy. Heineke knows that he'll make those kinds of plays consistently, and that was it. Minnesota's defense was not one that we thought was a defense that was a limiting factor, and maybe it's just Taylor Heineke that's the limiting factor here. And this also, by the way, this should put to rest if there was any talk of Heineke keeping this job when Wentz is ready to play. No. And I think with Indianapolis too, maybe we disrespected Pete Carroll, right, and the Seahawks, and thought, oh, it's Russell Wilson. He's the one in the right here, and the Seahawks are the ones in the wrong. And we've been, and I'm including myself. I say we, maybe not. I'm not including anybody else but myself, but other people. So I hear they, as they say. Carson Wentz, we thought he was the problem, right? He was the problem. Well, we're watching Indianapolis. Maybe he wasn't the problem. And watching Washington, you can see this offense was a lot better with him. And they've got some fight again. They're playing Philadelphia next week. Minnesota playing Buffalo next week. And if it's anything like this week, Cecil, it will be an entertaining week of football.
Entertaining week of football, and we will be here for you. Afternoon games, there's only 2, Bloom.
Yeah.
Anything you're seeing from those so far as we've been doing the show during the afternoon games?
Well, the Rams and the Bucks as much of a rock fight offensive futility as we would expect in that one between Brady and Stafford. Seattle and Arizona looking more like one of those NFC West divisional games where it's a low scoring game. Familiarity breeds contempt, as they say. And these teams are not going to have ceiling offensive games. They're not going to have shootouts. So this is still the second half, but it looks like that kind of limiting game. Remember, the NFC West, one of those divisions, 3 of the 4 teams in action right now. The other one, San Francisco on bye, and it's up for grabs. It's all up for grabs in the NFL. Ask the Jets.
Ask the Jets and ask your league mates if you played against Joe Mixon. I'm sorry. Anyway, that is a wrap for the show. Appreciate everyone out there for watching. As always, be safe, be kind, know you're appreciated. He's Sigmund, I'm Cecil. We are the Audible, everyone. Stay tuned. And as always, please stay frosty.